This is Lee Payne from Clover and Hoof, and you're watching CMS TV.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. Oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Ow!
After 5 full championship rounds, we go to the judges' scorecards for the official decision. Judge Linderman sees the contest 46-46, while judges Udeaga and Stamey see the contest 47-45, declaring your winner by majority decision and the new BYB lightweight champion, Mark The Shark Irwin!
Mark Irwin is the champion.
I'll tell you something else to keep in mind, Goldie. That right hand that Oxendine landed, he didn't throw a lot of punches after that. Sit on his laurels, or did he hurt his right hand?
Great point.
Let's bring him on, man.
Yes.
Mark The Shark Irwin, how are you, my friend? Thanks for coming on.
I'm doing good. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, I'm glad he's not like in the studio where he could beat the shit out of us. That's good. So now I'm going to be a little bit more open with what I ask you.
Well, Mark, man, welcome to the show, man. And I have been preaching the BYB for roughly a year or so since I discovered it, and I love it. I love it. I love the BKFC, which I know you've participated in as well. I love this just straight. I think we're done with the need for, I don't know, old school boxing kind of. We need the more aggressive, the more real gladiator type stuff, and that's exactly what you are doing, man. It's quite the sport, man. Tell us about it. I'm curious. We'll start there. How do you get into bare knuckle boxing? I mean, were you like a street guy? Did you used to kick ass on the streets? I mean, what was it that led you to, hey, I'll do this. Why not?
So I started my combat sports career as an amateur boxer.
Okay.
Won 2 California State Tournament championships with USA Boxing. From there, I started boxing professionally. I Went 2-0 with one knockout as a professional. And then one day I was watching YouTube, watching some fights like I sometimes do, and a bare knuckle fight popped up. So I watched the fight and I was like, man, this is crazy, right? And then the algorithm queued a couple more fights. I ended up watching about half a dozen in a row, after which I surmised that I could beat most of the guys that I had watched, right? And then by chance, the next day I saw on my phone that BKFC was having open tryouts in about 2 weeks from that date, at which point I decided it was like a sign from the universe, if you will. And I bought myself a plane ticket. I flew from Orange County, California to Tampa Bay, Florida. About 50 people attended the tryouts. They said they were going to sign 5 people. I ended up being one of them. And I've been fighting bare knuckle all across the United States ever since. And it's been a wild journey.
Well, how do you prepare yourself? And again, I got a zillion questions. How do you prepare yourself, especially as somebody that came up as an amateur, traditional boxer with gloves and probably at the beginning with headgear before you take the headgear off? How do you prepare yourself for the rawness of, bone on head, type of act? Because it's I've been in a bunch of bar fights, and when you get hit, you get hit. It's a whole lot different than boxing. How do you prepare yourself, and how did you have to change your game to adjust to it?
Yeah, bare knuckle definitely is very different from amateur or professional gloved boxing. And we did make some changes to my training program. One of the big changes that I made, I brought on a good friend and mentor of mine as one of my coaches, Ian Uncle Creepy McCall, the former UFC fighter and MMA world champion. We started including a lot of grappling into my training, jiu-jitsu, wrestling. And then the other big change that we made is that I started sparring mostly with mixed martial artists as opposed to boxers, because 2 things. One, the rule set for bare knuckle boxing is a little more akin to MMA, right? And a lot of the bare knuckle boxers are MMA fighters, and the way in which they box is a little bit different than traditional boxers. So those were the main changes that we implemented, working on my clinch game and getting used to sparring in the 4 or 6 ounce MMA gloves instead of 14-ounce boxing gloves.
Is there anything you got to do to your hands? Look, I'm a delicate man. I ain't gonna lie. So, if I hit something hard with my hand, I'm going to be bleeding all over the place in like 3 seconds. Is there anything you do to put on your hands or protect your hands or just toughen up your hands?
One of the main things that we worked on as far as getting my body physically ready for bare knuckle boxing was working on my grip strength a lot with my strength and conditioning coach, Corey Beasley. Shout out to Corey Beasley. He's one of the best strength and conditioning coaches for combat sports in the world. He was my coach, Ian McCall's strength and conditioning coach when he was the MMA champion of the world. He helped Carla Esparza win 2 UFC titles. So he's very knowledgeable and he knows what he's doing. And by strengthening all the muscles in my hands and forearms, it helped better prepare my knuckles to absorb the contact of bone on domes. And fortunately, I've never fractured my hands. They're still very healthy. But it definitely takes some preparation because it hurts like hell when you're punching someone straight off the top of the head with no pad.
I was going to say, I've been strengthening my grip for 20 years. I've been married, but, that's a totally different kind of training, I guess. But it's impressive what you guys do, man. It really is. Is there a next step from here, from the bare knuckle? Do you want to do anything like UFC or anything like that?
I mean, honestly, I think bare knuckle is the sport that I'm best suited for as far as my skill set and attributes. I love fighting for BYB. They've been a great organization to me, and we got some big things coming up for this year that I'm really excited about. So I don't anticipate trying to make a transition to mixed martial arts. I don't see myself going back to glove boxing. I think that I've really found a home in combat sports with bare knuckle and BYB Extreme.
That's awesome.
Well, Mark, you know as well as I do that right now BYB or just bare knuckle in general it has the stigma, kind of like UFC did at the very beginning, where people don't necessarily take it real serious and they think of it as savage and barbaric and whatnot. And I've got to imagine for someone like you, in a way that's hard, but in a way you kind of like it because you seem like the type that really does not give a shit what people think. In fact, you want them to give you anger. How do you handle that perception? And what do you tell people when they're like, oh, is that what you're doing? Which I'm sure you've heard.
Yeah, and there definitely are a lot of parallels between bare knuckle boxing in its ascension and mixed martial arts in the UFC. Initially the shock value of I think of it was a lot for people to handle, but just like mixed martial arts, currently bare knuckle boxing is the fastest growing sport in the world, much like the UFC was, and we're starting to see it come up with unified rules and become more accepted by the athletic commissions. I believe it's legally sanctioned in more than half the states in the U.S. currently. And I am very proud to be a pioneer of this great sport and to be one of the first U.S. world champions. So it's a blessing, and I love bare knuckle boxing, and I think it's only up from here.
All right, so when you're getting into the ring and some dude is there, do you have to get yourself pissed off, or do you rely just on training? Are you nice and calm when you get in the ring, or do you just really want to beat the shit out of the guy to the point that he ain't talking after the fight?
I really try to stay as calm and relaxed as possible. I try to save my energy for the fight. So in the locker room, we keep it real loose. I'm joking around, laughing, smiling. I really, I don't try to get too, I don't have any personal issues with the man I'm fighting. I'm not there to fight anyone specifically. I'm there for my own goals and ambitions. And whoever I end up fighting is just standing in my way of that. So, as far as anger and animosity, I really don't rely on that for fighting. I use staying calm and trusting my training and preparation.
Well, but I'm gonna question you on that one, Mark, just because I believe I've seen every fight you've done in the BYB. And that being said, you are the exact guy that any organization needs because you're a straight showman before you get to fighting, and the second the fight is over, you're after the crowd, you're talking shit to the guy across from you, you're giving it to Big Mo sometimes, I mean, you are a showman, which is going to bring attention to the sport. You're saying that all that is in from a calm place, because you sure don't seem calm as a viewer. You don't seem very calm.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like to have fun with it. As a kid, I grew up watching boxing and professional wrestling. And so as an adult and a professional prize fighter, it's a lot of fun for me to kind of lean into that character and play out that role of a heel in professional wrestling like I grew up watching as a kid. So, I'm there to entertain. Fighting is a sport, but it's also entertainment, and I like to give the fans their money's worth. So it's all in good fun. And, when the first bell rings, it's a fight to the death. But when the last bell rings, it's nothing but respect.
Right.
Has there ever been a time, and I know it's probably a stupid question because I probably know what you're going to say, but has there ever been a time where you're looking across the ring or coming down to the ring and you're going, man, I'm a little bit nervous about this one?
I mean, I definitely have had fights in my amateur and professional career where there was some nerves, but honestly, especially my last couple world championship fights, I'm almost wondering if I should be more nervous, because I'm not. I'm calm, I'm relaxed, I'm focused. I know I've, left no stone unturned in my training, and I've done everything that I can to be successful in that fight. So, I'm really a game time performer. The nerves don't get to me on fight night typically.
Right on. Let me swing it back to the sport itself for a minute, Mark. I gotta ask about the Trigon. To me, the Trigon is more intimidating than the opponent. Just two reasons. One, it's so small. I mean, there's nowhere to run. If you get your bell rung just a little bit, unlike boxing, I mean, we've all seen boxing. Somebody gets stung and you just see them backtracking and running around. There's nowhere to go in the Trigon. And then if you get in that corner, you're just fucked because that corner, it just, from an outsider, that corner looks like it is the one place you do not want to be ever. Talk a little bit about the Trigon and talk also about how you've had to adjust how you fight and your footwork and everything else to accommodate the small space and getting locked into that corner.
Yeah, that's a great question. The Trigon is the world's smallest combat sports surface. It is 20 feet by 20 feet by 20 feet, which essentially makes it half of a ring, right? When you remove one of the ring posts, you now have half a ring. So there's not a lot of room to move. And the corners themselves are actually smaller than a traditional boxing ring because it's a triangle. A regular boxing ring is 90-degree angles, whereas in the Trigon, it's 60-degree angles. So when you do get caught in a corner, it's tough to get out of there. There's not a lot of space to move. So it definitely does impact your tactics and strategy for the fight. I believe it's better to go forward and it's better to be first in a small space like that, because coming from a traditional background, I like backing up. I like fighting off the back foot and running guys on the shots. But there's really not much opportunity to do that in the Trigon. So you do have to make some adjustments as far as preparation and planning is concerned.
All right. I'm sorry to even ask this question, so forgive me in advance. I don't want you to punch me, nothing like that. But I have to know, because I'm looking at some of the pictures online. I don't know your status, but the BKFC ring girls are fucking hot. And do any of the guys, the fighters, end up hooking up with some of these chicks? How does that? I mean, are they random chicks you guys get from like the different cities you go to? How does that work?
Yeah, the ring girls are very beautiful. Typically, they're employed by the company for which they work. As far as their romantic lives, I won't speak on that. That's my place to talk, but. Yeah, they certainly are beautiful, and we do appreciate their hard work, ringside for the events.
Well, if you ever want to tell them that you know a couple of podcasters that are pretty cool dudes and, put a good word in, that would be awesome.
I got you. You're winning.
When disaster strikes, we come together. Here at Mario's Barbershop, we've turned our passion into purpose. As Hands to America, a 501c3 nonprofit, we're on the ground helping those hit by hurricanes, floods, fires, and tornadoes, right here in northeastern Ohio and nationwide. But we can't do it alone. We need your help to keep this vital work going. Your donations, whether it's cash or vehicles, can bring hope to those who've lost so much. Join us in making a real impact. Every donation fuels relief efforts and helps rebuild lives. Call us at 844-864-2637 or locally at 216-520-1977 or visit us at handstoamerica.org to see how you can help.
Well, Mark, I got to ask you about the Julio Tenori fight and the hematoma and everything. One, I don't know how you didn't win the fight. Personally, I mean, you won the fight, whether it went that way or not. You won that. But talk about that. Talk about how you felt at the end of that, and certainly talk about that head that you had coming out of it, because that was gruesome, man.
Yeah, it was a brutal fight. It was the Bare Knuckle Boxing Hall of Fame Fight of the Year award winner for 2023. And I appreciate you saying that. I felt like I won the fight. I know a lot of people felt like I won that fight. I think that he got the nod in a close decision because of the gruesomeness of that hematoma.
Yeah.
Just visually, it looked pretty bad. But I do think that I landed harder shots, and but sometimes that's combat sports. Sometimes it doesn't go your way, and sometimes it does. But it was one of the most bloody, violent, brutal fights you could ever hope to watch. I'm very proud to have been a part of such a iconic and historic fight. As far as the hematoma, I knew something was wrong with my head, but I wasn't exactly sure what it was. I didn't bother to ask my corner during the round. I was just locked in and focused on trying to win that fight. But yeah, it got me a blue check mark on Instagram because of all the articles that they wrote after the fight. The main headline was Mark the Shark grows a second head at BYB 22. So, I'm a person of influence on social media as a result of that spelling.
What did you think? And I'm just asking for just honest, real opinion. You knew something was bad at the end of the fight, but what did you think when you get back to the locker room? You obviously go and you look in the mirror. What did you think looking at that and seeing that second head staring back at you?
I didn't have a chance actually to make it to the locker room. They put me in an ambulance and gave me a ride to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I ended up, the hematoma was pretty gruesome looking, but it was a superficial injury at most. However, I did fracture my jaw in that fight, probably about halfway through, which required reconstructive surgery. So that was the more pressing concern and injury. But yeah, it was a tough one. Like I said, I thought I won that fight. I was disappointed with the decision. So I was pretty heartbroken, in the emergency room that night. But, that's the game. That's what I signed up for, and that's what can happen to you, when you step into that ring. So it is what it is. But like I said, I'm honored to have been a part of such a famous fight. And, I appreciate all the love and the support from the fans and people like yourself.
All right, dude, look, you got guys like Muhammad Ali that were never the same. I mean, after boxing with, big gloves on, and you're taking shots to the face and the head with bare knuckles, do you worry about long-term damage? Do you worry about brain damage? Do you worry about what the future is for you or your family and that kind of thing?
Actually, I do. And as a matter of fact, I am a board member of a nonprofit scientific research group that was founded by my coach and dear friend, Ian McCall. It's called The Athlete's Journey Home, and we are raising funding to undergo scientific research to try and cure brain damage caused by traumatic brain injuries. And in addition to being a board member of this nonprofit, I am also a research study participant. So we have a couple of different studies scheduled for this year. In April, we'll be going to Oregon with a couple of athletes and undergoing a psilocybin study. And later in September, we're going to go into the jungles of Peru and undergo traditional ayahuasca ceremonies. The University of Melbourne, Australia, is going to be collecting all the scientific data. They're going to do brain scans and gut biome testing before and after on all the athletes. And we are trying to definitively, scientifically prove that these therapies do help reverse the effects of brain damage. There's been a lot of really promising results so far in initial studies undergone by other similar therapeutic methodologies. So I'm excited to get that research underway, and I truly believe that it's going to have a profound impact. So I do quite a bit as far as that's concerned to try and offset and mitigate any of the damage caused by, the brutality of fighting.
Sure.
How long do you have to go between fights to recover your body, your head, and everything else before you can get out there and fight again?
It really just depends on the fight. It's case by case. I had the knockout of the year in 2022 when I knocked out Spencer Ruggieri in under 2 minutes. I could have fought again that night if I wanted to, right? And then there's fights like the Tenori fight where, I couldn't even train for 6 months afterwards. So it really just depends on the fight. It is, case specific.
Right on. When you I want to go back to the brain studies and the CTE for a minute. The obvious that everybody says is about the brutality and about that it's bare knuckles on head and whatnot. I kind of will argue, and I have argued with people about not only your sport, but even power slap in a way that it's actually less impactful than traditional boxing or football or whatever, just because you're not getting hit as much. I mean, even in the BYB, almost no fights go the full fight. Almost every fight goes, 1 or 2 rounds, where there's a lot less. And I mean, I guess if you just do the math, there's a lot less hits versus other sports. Do you think that is part of the game, and that might be why BYB might end up being considered safer than some of the other disciplines?
Yeah, I know that there's been some papers published espousing that bare knuckle is safer than traditional gloved boxing because of the fact that just you end up taking less shots in total, right? Gloved boxing especially, you can get dropped by a concussive blow, and you have 8-9 seconds to get back to your feet and shake it off, and they'll let you go out there and do it again, right? And championship fights are up to 12 3-minute rounds. So, the number of hits you take in professional championship boxing is obviously a lot more than MMA or bare knuckle. At this point, it's really hard for me to say. I'm not a scientist.
Sure.
I haven't really, reviewed the data. And this is a new sport, right? It's the oldest sport in the world as far as combat sports is concerned, but it's only been federally legal in the United States since 2018. So I think a lot of that still is kind of yet to be seen what the long-lasting effects are going to be, which is why, I'm so involved with my nonprofit, trying to raise money to get this research underway. As far as power slap is concerned, one thing I don't like about it is the fact that, unlike traditional combat sports, where at least you have an opportunity to defend yourself,
True.
You gotta sit there and take it, all right, which is kind of crazy. And a lot of these guys are hitting with the palm, right? So it's a lot like taking a punch. It's not something I would want to do, right? I know it's kind of interesting. Everyone's kind of got a line, and everyone draws it at a different spot. I'll get in there and bare knuckle box, but I don't think I would do the power slap.
Right. I hear you. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about, Mark, is, and again, this is just as a fan watching this, so I could be way off base versus you who's in the ring doing this, is it seems to me, just as a viewer, that the referees are pretty lenient right now as far as letting you go when there's a really bad cut. I've watched hundreds of bare knuckle fights, and seems like they start the round, they immediately stop, they go over to the doctor, they take a look for a second, they'll show a nasty, nasty cut, and they'll be like, you're good, go. Do you think that will kind of, as the sport grows and as you try to get more licensing across the country, do you think that will tighten up some as you go forward?
Yeah, like I mentioned, bare knuckle is very new as far as being a legally sanctioned sport here in the U.S. And I think that the referees are still kind of trying to figure out how to officiate the bouts, right? So I think there's a bit of a learning curve as far as coming over from boxing or MMA to bare knuckle as an official and a referee. So I do expect that the landscape will change in that respect as they kind of try to figure this thing out.
Right on. Do you? I'm going to ask this, but I'm going to not ask you to give me any specifics, but just give me an overwhelming kind of look. Obviously everybody's going to compare to UFC. That's the benchmark, more or less. And a lot of guys are making a shit ton of money in the UFC, the Conor McGregor money and whatnot of the world. Obviously it's a new sport, but does BYB pay enough to, you're not going to do this till you're 50, does it pay enough to where you'll have retirement type money? And is that amount of money growing as the sport is growing?
As far as that's concerned, it really depends on the fighter, right? The fighter paid according to, how many butts they put in the seats, how many people are tuning in to see them. So one fighter's pay could be drastically different from another. I'm a big advocate and proponent of increasing fighter pay,
Sure.
healthcare, all these things. I was at an event yesterday, the LA Fit Expo. We had a booth for my Athletes Journey Home Foundation. And I had the pleasure of hanging out with Rose Gracie, who is the daughter of Hirian Gracie, who helped found the UFC.
Sure.
She's president of the Combat Federation in Brazil. And it was really great to get to talk to her because she's a huge advocate of increasing fighter pay, providing jobs and resources to fighters post-fight career in their retirement, creating a pension plan, creating health care for fighters. She's, a great ally to all professional fighters, and we need more people like her involved in the sport to help give more opportunities to fighters when their fighting career is over.
Right on. So what's next for you, man? What's your next fight? When is it? When will we see it? And I'm assuming we'll see it the same place we always do on YouTube. Yes.
Yeah, we're talking to them right now. April may be a possibility for my next bout. So we're starting to gear up and get ready for that. I got a couple other things in the works I'm really excited about. I really don't know if I should even be speaking on this, but I'll give you guys a little something.
Cool.
BYB has been very good to me, and they've given me an opportunity to have my own YouTube show on their channel.
Nice.
Great show. So we're currently filming the first initial season of that, and for that to drop soon. So keep an eye out for the Shark Show on BYB's YouTube page. Hopefully February episode 1 should drop.
That's awesome. Before we get out of here, I got one more question for you, and forgive me again. Do you ever hope and pray when you walk into a bar or something like that, the guy fucks with you because you know that you're just going to be able to beat the shit out of this tool bag?
Honestly, no. You'd be surprised. Actually, quite the opposite. I go out of my way to avoid conflict in my personal life because I get enough of that in my professional life between training. I'm in the gym fighting some of the best fighters in the world on a pretty regular basis. The last thing I want to do is go get in a fist fight for no money at a bar or something. I always tell people I only fight on television for money.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Do you have people-
Wait a second. If I was a badass like this guy is, I would walk in with my wife wearing like next to nothing and dare some guy to like go after her. So I could just take a couple of swings and be over, and I'd look like that's just
No
me.
way. Well, Mark, do people in the crowd give you static? Because you certainly give the crowd a lot of static. When you're coming off, do the people in the crowd, are they screaming and hollering at you and challenging you and all that stuff?
You definitely hear it from the fans on the way in. Usually by the time the fight is over, it's nothing but, respect and admiration. When I won the world title in Rock Hill, South Carolina, pardon me, it was in my opponent, Joshua Oxendine's backyard,
Right,
about 50 miles away. So I was definitely hearing the boos on the way in. But when I was in the bar drinking, smoking cigarettes with the belt on my shoulder after the fight, I got nothing but handshakes and pats on the back and respect from the people in the crowd. Whenever I run into fans in real life, everyone's always real respectful and shows me a lot of love. The only place I really see any real hatred or animosity is on social media. People get when they're on their phone, in the safety of their home or wherever they might be. But, in the real world, people are nothing but cool and respectful.
That's cool. There are some dumb people out there that would try some shit, and you got to put them in place sometimes. So, God bless you. But I appreciate you coming on, man.
Having me, I appreciate you. It's been a pleasure.
Make sure everybody checks them out on YouTube and look out for the new show coming out. Check out BYB. Support the cause, man, because it's good stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you, brother. Appreciate you guys.
Man.
Hey.
Thanks, Mark.
We'll talk to you later, my friend.
Sounds good, brother.
And I want to play some more of his stuff. He's a badass, dude.
He is.
And I want to see. We have a clip of some fighting, right?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, hit the knockout.
Opportunities here to really step on the gas. I don't know if he's the one that if he's tired as well. but Tenori slowing down. There's chances for Irwin to really throw some short combinations in there.
Mark has landed some heavy left hooks in the last 30 seconds.
Yeah, they're both looking for a one-at-a-time shot, and I think that still gives Tenori a chance to stay in the fight here.
It's going to become
a good shot there. I was just saying a combination. He throws a combination, and he drops Tenori.
Seth Williams loves this land, stands tall and proud. Believes in freedom, speaks his mind out loud. Mentored by Trip, he learned to be tough. Life knocked him down, but he got back up. Lost a leg, but he's still strong and true. Chasing dreams under skies of red, white, and blue. Voting for Trump, he shouts it clear. WTAM tried to bring him down, but he's still here. In the heart of America, Seth takes a stand. Against the tides, he defends our land. Liberals call him crazy, but he don't care. He's got the spirit of an eagle, soaring high in the air. Hates LeBron James, won't wear that crown. Prefers hard work and blue jeans in this town. Radio waves try to shut him up, but Seth keeps singing, filling that cup. From the small town streets to the mountain high, Seth sees the flag waving, reaching for the sky. He keeps on fighting with a rebel yell, for every fallen soldier and the stories they tell. In the heart of America, Seth takes a stand. Against the tides, he defends our land. Liberals call him crazy, but he don't care. He's got the spirit of an eagle, soaring high in the air. On the small town streets to the mountain high, Seth sees the flag waving, reaching for the sky. He keeps on fighting with a rebel yell, for every fallen soldier and the stories they tell. In the heart of America, Seth takes a stand. Against the tides, he defends our land. Liberals call him crazy, but he don't care. He's got the spirit of an eagle, soaring high in the air.
I had an interest in music, always.
It's always kind of been around me some way, shape, or form.
5 minutes sitting on a drum set, man, change your life.
This is the same black guitar that Marty McFly plays in Back to the Future.
I love the feeling I get in front of the freaking full stack here, just the vibration, there's something to it.
I'm lucky because I do have a little bit of a tap into the Fu Manchu lore, into the Nebula lore.
In order to keep things going, you kind of have to like start playing the game a little bit, you know, like the business game.
Everybody has to get through a day-to-day, and how do you exist and how do you get by?
As far as getting people to commit to bands, it's tough to keep a lot together these days, for sure.
Still sleeping on people's floor, that's still a reality.
Probably also playing with some of the best people I've ever played with. The creative juices don't stop. It just keeps going.
For me, it's just finding a balance of how much time I'm spending with my family versus how much time I'm spending working.
It's this validation that what you're doing actually has merit.
Obviously, we're a little long in the tooth, And we've been doing this for a minute, and now we can kind of do what we want. We don't need a record company. I'll do it myself and do it the way I want to.
Just always be cool. Just be respectful. Those are your people. They're connecting to you on some level, even if they don't look like you.
It's got to happen, you know, or else I'll go crazy. Go crazy one way or another, you know. I might as well, you know, not go crazy if I can play music.
Maybe one day I'll have a Porsche, but, you know, until that day, I'll drive a Chevy.
There you go.
All right?